Okay guys, so it is 2 o'clock, let's begin. So thank you everyone for joining today, especially considering it is your half-term break. So it's great to see familiar names, so welcome today. So you are in the right place. We are joined with the NHS today. We're going to be looking at management roles, which is really exciting. We've got some great guys who are going to be sharing their experience with you. Before we come on to that, just to quickly give you an overview on how you guys can communicate in today's session. So you will see on the panel that there is a chat box. So I'm just going to type in the chat box. So please, guys, do use that, do communicate with us throughout the session. I'm just going to pop hello, feel free to say hi and how your day is going. So hopefully you can see that message. So do use that as and when we do ask you to communicate. If you do have a question, however, please ask it in the Q&A box, which you will see on the bottom of the panel as well. But if you did want to chat to us directly, you can raise your hand and we'll be able to unmute you and then you can ask a question. So feel free to give that a go. So today focus, as I said, is on management roles within the NHS. So we've got some great apprentices who are going to be sharing their experience and their journey into the role that they're doing now, and obviously sharing their advice for you guys. The session should last about 45 minutes or so we won't keep you too long from the sunshine. But more importantly, we want you guys to make the most out of today's session. It is our 4th instalment with the NHS throughout the month of May. So some of you perhaps have been on all of them, which is great. And of course, you would have seen all the different opportunities that the NHS have to offer. But today focusing on those management roles and the main thing, I guess, is, if you do have any questions, please do ask them. Really do make the most of today. So you might recognize this, guys, but for anyone that perhaps is joining us for the first time today, I just wanted to recap and more of a visual for you, just to demonstrate all the different opportunities that are available within the NHS, and looking at, obviously, all those routes that you can get within an apprenticeship. And I have highlighted those that appeal to today, that are relevant for looking at the management roles. But I think enough from me. I think it will be great to hand over now to the experts. So we're just going to have a quick introduction from our special guests that we have today. So let's start with Rob. So your name and your role within the NHS.
Yeah, hi. So my name's Rob Brooks. I work for Health Education England, and we are we're the organisation that's effectively responsible for training and development of staff across the NHS, making sure that we have enough staff in the roles that are required across the whole of the healthcare system. And my role is supporting the East of England region with apprenticeships and sort of entry-level talent.
Great, thanks. And Vikesh.
Hi guys, I'm Vikesh. So I work for Moorfields Eye Hospital. I've done sort of a range of different roles in the just over 2 years that I've been there, and yeah, currently in my first sort of proper management role. And so it's been a bit of a challenge learning that with the weird circumstances, but it's yeah. So that's a brief introduction to me.
Great, thanks. And Lauren.
Hi, so like Vikesh, I'm a management apprentice. In the last 2 years, we've done a different variety of administrative work. I'm currently in my placement with service improvement, and we're doing a lot of recovery planning for obviously the COVID-19 related cancellations and rebookings that we've had to make at the moment.
Great. And Christopher.
Hi, I'm Christopher Davis, and like Lauren and Vikesh, I'm a management apprentice within the NHS, and I'm currently on an external placement.
Perfect, Great, thanks guys. So I guess what will be really great to hear from you individually is your journey into, you know, where you are now. So perhaps looking from school, college, what that looked like. So let's kick off with Lauren. How did you get to where you are today?
So I came straight from college, actually. I took about a 6-month break. So I decided I wanted to go into business management, but I wasn't quite sure where. And an apprenticeship sort of appeared where you could get a degree at the same time. So obviously a lot of people, when you leave college or when you finish your A-levels, you aren't quite sure what exactly it is you want to do if you want to go to university. And when I was at school, apprenticeships weren't really recommended as much. It was more you have to go to university. But I also wanted to get a bit more experience in the workplace. And being in the NHS, obviously you're helping a lot. And if you're not wanting to be medical and you're wanting to help out that little bit more, it's such a good way to be able to help externally, which is obviously how I found myself working for the NHS.
That's great. And same for Christopher.
Yeah, so I didn't go straight from college. So after college, I went into employment where I worked in manufacturing firms and marketing firms. But then when I found that my career wasn't really progressing further than assistant manager, I looked into further education, and being from the West Midlands, apprenticeships mainly focus around trade in my area. So finding a degree apprenticeship for business management, that was definitely something that shined to me.
Great, thanks. And same for you, Vikesh.
So for me, so I finished my A-levels. I actually went to uni, did a traditional degree in biochemistry first, and then kind of while I was studying for that, got a part-time job in a supermarket. And so kind of initially just like working on checkouts, and then eventually after about a year there, I got promoted into a role as an assistant manager. And so, you know, I don't know the age, I don't know the sort of age range of all the students that are here today, but kind of if ever you want to get some exposure into working in a very high pressure environment and having to turn things around quickly, I can think of few places that are better than a supermarket for that, where you've got to constantly get things turned over and whatever. And then just for about 6 months after I finished uni, I was still working there whilst looking for something a bit more kind of full-time and with a bit more career progression to it. And that's where I found this role in the NHS. And so just sort of thought, you know, I was applying for anything and everything I could find at the time. And so it was just another application that I happened to get lucky with.
Yeah, that's great. And it's really interesting to hear that all of you guys, you've got that slightly different experience from, you know, school and college. So Lauren, actually, we'll come on to you. You said that you always knew you wanted to go down the business management route. So I guess firstly, you know, what did you study at college? Was it anything related to that? And secondly, what made you then pick management within the NHS?
So I actually did business at college. So I did a level 3 course, like BTEC, so there's a lot of coursework based. I'm not quite sure. I've always quite liked business, always found it quite interesting. And I thought, you know, that's something that I did want to do. And then obviously when you leave college and you're looking for like a place to go, like you're not quite sure what it is that you're actually after. I thought, you know, obviously having a look around the different jobs that are there and then researching into the different companies. So obviously the NHS is so big, and although they might have different organisations within them, they all do similar things. So you can then, you know, extend your knowledge and you can say work for as a service manager, and then you can go into quality and service improvement, that sort of thing. I think it's the different variety of roles that I think attracted me to the NHS. You can do such like a big difference, but you can take different pieces of information that you gathered in every role but help out in that way. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, and as you say, it's like all the variety within the NHS. That's really interesting. What about yourself, Christopher?
So what led me here was at college I studied uniformed public services level 3, and originally I always wanted to go into a form of public services, primarily either the armed forces or the police. But then due to, at the time, the medical implications of being born with asthma, that was written off basically. So then I looked at other forms of public services, and then I looked into the NHS, and with my experience in employment, I kind of got a taste of the coalface of business, and that kind of, like, my qualifications and my experience and my personal interest of public services all kind of met on the same road with this application. So
Great. And you said,
it all just fit for me.
yeah, nice. And you said then from school you had, like, you know, as you said, you had experience working at different places. But when you were at school, sort of what made you think, because students on the line, some are in year 13, they've got a place at university, but perhaps they're still considering and doing an apprenticeship. What made you realise that that wasn't the route for you?
So when I finished school, some of my friends, they went to university, and when they came out, they were having problems finding the jobs within their field. And when I'd speak to them about it, their constant barrier would be, you don't have adequate work experience. So that put me off going into university straight away. And that's why I went down the work route. And then, yeah, this kind of, the degree apprenticeship kind of found a bit of everything. So I was getting that further education, I was continuing my work experience, and I was getting a wage.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then I guess let's come on to you, Vikesh. So you said you went to university.
Yeah.
Let's go back to, so what did you study at A level, and then obviously what made you go down the university route?
So the 3 A levels that I did, so at AS level, I started off doing biology, chemistry, maths, and history, and then for the second year, dropped maths at AS level, and so did biology, chemistry, history full A level. Went on to a biochemistry degree at Royal Holloway, and then just kind of around sort of the end of my second year, start of my third year dissertation project, just kind of realized then that actually, like, research and academia wasn't really what I wanted to go into, but that I wanted kind of a career linked to, like, life sciences and just science in general. And then obviously while I was working at a supermarket as well, and just kind of in a management role, kind of constantly just from people all over in every department that I was working with, just kind of I started hearing little bits and pieces of, like, positive feedback, and so kind of that gave me that little bit of okay, maybe a leadership role. I quite enjoy, like, seeing people get behind the vision and everyone working towards one thing. And I'm hearing from other people that, like, you know, positive things about the way I'm working. So, you know, this seems like something that I could definitely make a career out of and that I enjoy. And then I guess what led me into the NHS was kind of a mixture of what Chris and Lauren have said about, like, the variety of roles. So where you can, you know, if you want to do something operational, you can. If you want to do something more sort of behind the scenes with, like, service improvement, I mean, hey, even if you want to go into, like, data analytics and that kind of thing, then, you know, every NHS organisation has a performance and information department. And so just that kind of variety, and alongside that, kind of just the mixture of people that you get to work with, where, you know, you've got people from every corner of the world you can think of working in the NHS. So, you know, it's one of those things where you get such a variety of experiences that every minute of every day you're learning something new, which is something that I think you can't undervalue.
Yeah, no, that's really great. And it was really interesting how you said, you know, you use your experience from work, from feedback that you're getting from colleagues, and thinking, actually, hey, yeah, maybe I'm good at this. And I think when students are, you know, perhaps they're studying certain A levels and they think, oh, what am I going to do? You know, I've taken French and history. How am I going to have a career in these subjects? But, you know, sometimes it's not about really what you're studying. It's about, you know, what your interests are and what you naturally feel that you're good at. So yeah, as you mentioned, there's loads of variety, and looking at the roles, you know, you can be a project manager, operations manager. So I guess what is your day to day? What does that look like? Let's start with you, Lauren.
As I said, at the moment, I'm in service improvement. At the moment, I think I'm currently on 2 different projects. So one is looking at how we can move everything from paper-based to online, so moving everything to electronic records. I've literally only just been put on this project, so it's been a lot of research, a lot of background information, putting documents together for like different initiation documents, and a lot of like liaising with different people that you might not necessarily be liaising with normally. So it's a good way to obviously network that way. But it's a lot of what we do is behind the scenes anyway. So you're just, many people, making sure different people are like there for you and making sure everyone's like sort of like interfacing properly. So at the moment, I'm more supporting like the higher management and things.
Okay, great. And Krista, same question for you.
So at the moment, I'm on an external placement with IBM until September. And at the minute, my day-to-day consists around doing research with the marketing team around healthcare and life sciences. But on top of that, I'm also helping the Watson Health Executive Board with the COVID response meetings and helping them around that. So that pretty much is my day-to-day at the minute.
Yeah. And so you mentioned your placement then at IBM. So how did you go about getting that placement? Were you assigned that, or is that something that you applied for? How did that work?
That was something I was assigned, but I think Rob might be able to answer how that came about a bit better.
Yeah, so I suppose I should have explained at the start of the webinar that the apprentices on the call today are apprentices that I recruited from Moorfields while I worked there as apprenticeship lead. So the program that they're currently undertaking was one that I designed. So if it's good, then it was my fault. If it's bad, then it wasn't. So the concept of working with IBM, one of the things we wanted to do at Moorfields was to have a program that developed people in a rounded way, so that when they finish that program, they had a really good grasp of management across sectors and different types of roles. So we were quite keen on ensuring that we had an external placement, which just allowed our apprentices to get some knowledge and experience from the private sector, and then through our training provider, I then linked up with IBM, and we've organised an external rotation for each of the apprentices to go into that.
Okay, that's great. That's really interesting. So I guess you guys are the guinea pigs then, as such.
That's one word for it.
And Vikesh, then, what does your day-to-day look like? Any particular projects you're working on, perhaps?
So at the moment, just kind of started my first management role as like an interim replacement for someone who left for this final placement. So at the moment, with COVID and everything going on, kind of my normal day-to-day role is just, so what we're trying to do a lot of at the moment is just kind of, we had a lot of like backlogs of old data and just things which hadn't been updated in a long time, because it was kind of one of the things where normally we're so busy trying to sort of facilitate clinics and surgeries and things running smoothly that they just kind of get put on the back burner a little bit of, oh, it's, it's something that we can tidy up later. So at the moment, we're just trying to kind of cleanse all of that data and make sure that, when we do get up and running again, kind of got a fresh slate to start from. And then alongside that, just kind of trying to make a few sort of small changes to kind of hopefully anyway work a bit smarter, and just mean that we've got like frees up a lot more time during the day to be able to kind of keep on top of all this data management and that kind of thing.
So yeah, I guess, and it's interesting to say how obviously with the current situation, how that's affected certain things that you're doing. We've just had a question that's just come in from Charlie. So thank you, Charlie, for your question. Is there anything you would do differently in starting or worrying about your career? So I guess if you were sort of starting out again, is there anything that you would do differently? Vikesh, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that when I was a little bit younger than I am now, one of the things that I kind of wish I'd done sooner was I guess because it was around at the time, is set up my LinkedIn profile, just because I think it's one of those things where it gives you the exposure to so many different people and from so many different fields, that I guess that's the one thing that I would have done differently, because a few of my friends from when I was at uni and when I was at school, kind of, they were on top of that earlier than I was, and and it ended up kind of, a few of them ended up getting headhunted by certain companies off it. So I guess, yeah, that's one thing that I would do, is just kind of build up a network of contacts as quickly and as early as you can, because it becomes invaluable.
Yeah, no, great advice. Lauren, Crystal, do you have anything to add on that?
Lauren, do you want to go first?
I don't think I would change anything. I think obviously everything that you've done has obviously been for a reason. Even if it's you get another job before you go and join the NHS, you've always got something else to offer that someone else might not. Obviously, it's everyone's personal choice what you do. I think it's just, if you have that regret, maybe do something about it then that you can change. So if you regret maybe, I didn't learn enough about being a data analyst, there's different courses that you can take, there's different things you can do to maybe make yourself a bit more informed about an area that you want to be informed about. I think that's the only thing, that's probably the only advice I would give. Just make sure that you're as informed as you can be about what you want to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Crystal, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, so for me personally, what I would change when I was starting out with my career is I was very focused on the one thing. So I was really going for this position in the army, and then when that fell through no fault of my own, I was kind of lost with what I should do, and that took a few years to pick myself up. So especially when starting out, is you want, I wish I had a more broader horizon of what I was looking at. Maybe I could have found things earlier, but like, I also agree with what Lauren says, is these things do kind of happen, and if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here today. So it's give and take, but if I could change anything, I'd make sure that when I was setting out, I wasn't so like niche with what I was aiming for. I had a broader horizon.
Yeah, that's a great point. And obviously, with that getting over that hurdle, thinking, yes, you've got your eyes sort of set on doing one thing and then suddenly you can't do it. So yeah, it's very, upsetting, and you think, oh gosh, what is my plan B? With my background, I've always, when I was at college, I always wanted to, I've danced since I was 3, so I always, that was all I was ever going to do, and I knew that, but then as you get older and you realize, well, actually being self-employed, it's up to you. When you're not in a contract, it's up to you to find other work. So then I sort of opened up my horizons. I thought, okay, well, actually, let's give other things a go. And I did cabin crew for a couple of years at British Airways, which if I had told myself, at 18 that I was going to be doing that in a few years' time, I would have been like, what? No, of course not. But I guess it's, just a prime example of, yeah, you might have one certain thing in your head, I want to leave school and do this. But yeah, there are different challenges which will come out, but it's how you bounce back from that. And it's sort of, not being worried, because it happens to us all. You've just got to take a step back, reflect, and think, okay, like Vikesh said earlier, he realized he was getting feedback and thinking, hang on a minute, I'm good at this. So, think, what do you do outside of school? What are you good at? What do people say about you? And that might help you on your way when you're deciding what you want to go into. And I guess then that transition from, so Lauren, you said you were at college and then you went straight into your apprenticeship, but how did you find that transition from college straight into the role? What was challenging around that?
I think it's very different. For a start, it's completely different. You don't really know what to expect until you're in there. Obviously, whether it's what you're doing on a day-to-day basis or how many days you're at work, the sort of work you're being assigned, it is very different. I think at the beginning, as everyone here knows, I did struggle a little bit. I think what you can imagine something can be and what it can be is very different. So I think balancing how that works out is probably the hardest part, especially when we were doing university on a Friday and it was all day. And I'm quite a perfectionist, so I think it's always something that's quite hard to balance, is you want everything to be perfect and it's not going to be. So I think it's just accepting the fact that you're never going to get everything perfectly right all the time.
Yeah. Definitely. Vikash, anything to add?
No, I think it's kind of that balancing act of being able to kind of manage squeezing a full-time job into 4 days of a week and then a full-time degree into the other 3, and just kind of, obviously, because I'd done each separately but not at the same time, so kind of doing a full-time degree on its own is a challenge in itself, but a lot easier to manage because you've got your however many hours of contact time, and then the rest of the week is yours to manage as you please. So you've definitely got a lot more time to kind of get extra reading and research and things in for assignments, but trying to do that pretty much just over the weekend, because I think Lauren and Chris will probably agree that Friday of lectures is full on. And so, like, the first year of the course, we had, what was it, about an hour's break in 9 hours worth of lectures.
Well, it was quite intense.
So very, very intense, kind of a lot of information thrown at you all at once. It's just... Sorry,
carry on, Vikash.
Yeah, so no, I was just going to wrap up by saying, that balancing of both is definitely the biggest challenge that I've had.
Yeah, great. And Chris, were you going to add something on that?
Yeah, the first year was very intense for us because we started in February 2018. So we'd already missed a good portion of the academic year and we had to play catch up. So it was like a baptizing fire kind of thing. But we all kind of became quite close knit and got each other through it. And we've all kind of come out better for it.
Yeah, and that's good that you guys all know each other, and it sounds like, as you said, you've got that nice close knit. So Lauren, you said you had a few problems. It's nice that that you can chat to one another as you're going through the same thing. So I guess then, in terms of thinking about, actually, do we have any questions? Please do feel free to, you're not interrupting us. If anyone does have any questions, or perhaps is anyone thinking about going into management particularly, it'd be good to hear what you guys think. In terms of that application process, how was that? What did that look like? Lauren, do you want to go?
So I think we all might have found the application process in a different way. So I'd already applied with the university that we're with, so Pearson. I'd found the job advert on their website because they obviously advertise and they do like degree apprenticeships with a lot of different companies. So you have like BBC and all the different ones there. And I actually applied that way. And I think the process itself was relatively quick. I think it might have been in a test, like a quick job description of what you would like to do, like why it attracts you, and then just sending through your CV. And then I think through that we had to wait a couple of weeks, and then I think there was two different interviews. So we had like a full day interview, so you had a group exercise, a written exercise, a formal interview, a one-to-one, that sort of thing. And then the second part was, if you pass that first, you'd meet with 2 other people on like a panel interview for an hour, and do your interview that way. So that was how we had the application process.
Right. And Lauren, had you done anything? Had you experienced like an assessment centre beforehand, or was this all new to you?
So I did apply for a degree apprenticeship once before, whilst I was actually still during college, and this was with the same provider. So we did do the assessment centre, and I got to, I think, the second phase, and then obviously I didn't get the job, but obviously it did prepare me for the sort of questions and, the different exercise that you might have to do when I did apply again. So obviously that was such a good experience for me.
Yeah, and what about Vikesh? What about how was that process for you? And I guess obviously having gone down university first, do you think you had any more experience, or yeah, how did you find the application process?
So I actually found the role in a slightly different way to Laura, and I found it through the NHS jobs website, which probably made the initial application slightly easier because it was a more standard job application form where essentially just fill in your CV and send it off, and then you hear back. I think it's such a different way of studying that, like, you know, I almost had to kind of throw my previous uni experience and how I'd studied there out the window. Just obviously two very different courses and very different ways of learning. And then yeah, kind of I'd done a few assessment centres in other jobs that I'd applied for, but I think, and despite not getting those jobs, I think the assessment centre that we had for this was probably the toughest one I did, just because there was so much more variety in kind of the elements that they were testing. And so, for instance, with the group exercise that Laura mentioned, it was kind of, you had to really be able to read the room to make sure that you were contributing enough to get noticed, but not so much that it looked like you were kind of taking over and bulldozing your ideas onto other people.
Yeah, it's finding the balance, isn't it? And
yeah,
to a few students who who have been through assessment centres this year, and you know, they're like, oh, what tips do you have? But exactly as you said, it's making sure that your point, you know, you are communicating in that group, but not overpowering. We've just had a question that's just come through, which quite an interesting one. Do you have regular performance evaluations, and do you have mentors to guide you during your career? Chris, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so throughout the apprenticeship, we have had mentors and regular performance evaluations. The NHS in general has the annual performance management, where your line manager will sit you down and go through what your previous goals were, have you met those goals, and then also moving forward, what are your next set of goals and how you plan to reach those. So that there is some amazing levels of support there for you within the NHS if you go through any form of apprenticeship or degree or scheme within the NHS.
That's good. Great question. Thank you. I think that's important. All the while you're studying and, you know, on the course, it's good to still check in with yourself and other people to make sure that actually, you know, you're going in the right direction. Izzy has asked, how long is the apprenticeship program with the degree, and also what is the accreditation of the degree? Who wants to answer that one?
I'll take this one. So just one thing on the previous question that I'll add is, so when we first started, we did get assigned kind of a group of the senior managers as mentors. But then just, you know, naturally, as people do, kind of, they all ended up moving on to other roles. And so kind of that element got lost along the way. But while we did have it, it was definitely kind of helpful because I know for myself especially, it gave me exposure to a few of the different like improvement projects and restructuring projects that we had going on quite early on after I started. And so then that kind of has definitely helped me along the way to kind of spot things out of, okay, maybe we could do certain things differently and kind of how to change that. And then on about how long it is. So initially it was scheduled in to be 3 years, but the degree itself we've ended up kind of just having to play catch up in that first year because we'd missed kind of a good portion of it. We've ended up completing the degree in roughly 2.5 years. And so the full apprenticeship, we should hopefully, all fingers crossed, finish by the end of the year. And so the accreditation of the degree is a Bachelor of Arts. And the apprenticeship itself is the CMI degree apprenticeship, although
Yeah.
Rob, you might be able to correct me if I've got that wrong.
So yeah, the apprenticeship, the title of the apprenticeship is a Chartered Manager Degree Apprenticeship. And as Vikesh says, that includes a BA Honours in business management. Although the actual degree itself may differ from university to university, but it will be a management degree as part of that apprenticeship. And as Vikesh said, generally speaking, you would find that would run over 3 years or sometimes even 4 years. But the Pearson delivery model fast tracks the first year to allow the apprentices to effectively fall into line with the other cohorts who started in the September.
Okay, great. And while we're on the topic of the actual course, what Gabriella has asked, what is the balance between practical work and the theory work, and which of those do you enjoy most? Lauren, do you want to answer that one?
So obviously, because we're doing obviously both, like obviously your placement and your degree, the degree work that you're actually asked to do, a lot of it is based around projects at work. So you're asked to obviously take your initiative and have a project in place. So you could be asked to do a research module, and this could be about something you want to improve in the workplace or something that you think is a problem. So obviously there is a good balance, and obviously you're working 4 days, so you have an active role there. So everything you're doing there is practical. But your theoretical side, so you've got obviously your coursework, which it can be quite hefty. And now we've got, because we've just finished university, we're currently doing the CMI side. So it's a lot of sort of like meeting criteria. So it's just like writing up. So you haven't got like, it's probably, I'd maybe say maybe an 80-20 split between practical and theoretical. I don't know if anyone else thinks that's any different.
It's kind of how you deal with it yourself, because as Lauren says, it's a lot of the work is orientated around your day-to-day job. So your theoretical piece of coursework, you can kind of make it a practical research project by incorporating it into your day-to-day job. So the balance is, I wouldn't say it's automatically set, it's kind of what you make it yourself.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Vikesh, do you have anything to add, or how, what do you enjoy most? Any struggles, anything that you struggle with?
Nothing that Lauren and Chris haven't kind of already covered. So
okay, great. I guess then, as for the last 5 minutes or so, I think keep the questions coming. It's really great, guys. I guess, one has just come in. Let's take, this is an interesting one. What is it about management that attracts you? Chris, let's start with you.
So I've always liked the idea of management and kind of having that level of responsibility, because even like through school and when I was very young, like a young teenager, I was in the Army Cadets, and kind of pulling people through difficult times and being there for people to be able to support them. That was something that really resonated with me. And like when you see a problem, if you're in a management position, you've got more capability there to be able to fix it. So yeah, so people management, well, not so much people management, it's people development that I like about management. It's having those people there that they kind of rely on you, and you have to make them better and help them develop themselves professionally.
Great answer. That's really interesting. Does anyone have anything to add on that? What attracts you to the
so I think kind of quite similar for me, but kind of on top of that kind of having that kind of very broad sort of strategic outlook of being able to kind of get a team of people to work with you on a vision of, right, there's like, and just kind of getting people to come up with the ideas themselves of like, right, these things that we're doing work quite well, let's keep them the same. These things don't. And then kind of just getting kind of similar to what Chris said, of kind of just getting being able to kind of mobilize people behind that vision of like, let's constantly see how we can do things better and work towards that, on top of obviously all the regular day-to-day tasks that you're doing. I think it was kind of that element of being able to develop not just the people you're working with, but an organization as a whole to be able to be kind of the best version of itself.
Great. And Lauren, anything else to add on that?
I think the boys said it quite well, actually. I think for me, naturally, I'm quite a people person. I do get a bit chatty. I do quite like speaking to different people, and obviously having a team for anything is obviously quite important. I just think obviously having people there that you can be responsible for, but you can also help and they can help you is, I think, something that's quite important for the whole management process to actually work.
Great. And we've got a few more questions, which is great. Thanks, guys. But I just wanted to ask you all individually, you know, any advice that you would give to a young person who perhaps is thinking about management within the NHS? Lauren, do you want to go?
I think the main thing would be to not, because I was the youngest person that joined our apprenticeship scheme, and obviously some people can find it a bit difficult to take some advice or some information from someone that's a lot younger. I think not to get disheartened, because obviously it's such a big organisation and you might feel that sometimes it's going at such a quick pace, but obviously just go at your own speed. Like, there's never a rush. You can go whatever speed you like. If you want to wait a few years, you can. Like, it's never anything that you should feel so disheartened about. I think it's all such a big learning curve, and I think anything that you do learn is probably something that you can always build on, and it's something that's always going to do you good in the long term.
Great. Vikesh?
Yeah, I think completely agree with what Lauren said. Of just kind of, you know, work at a pace that you're comfortable at, kind of just build up as big a range of experience as you can. And then on top of that, kind of, if you are looking to get into sort of a management or leadership role, just kind of outside of your day-to-day job. But one thing that kind of, well, I enjoyed reading just generally anyway, but one thing I would say is definitely kind of, if you don't try and get into the habit of just reading as many different books, articles, you know, go and look up, you know, some of the best managers and leaders in the world, people like, you know, your Steve Jobs, your Alex Fergusons, and just kind of look at what they did and how they did it. Because, so I guess an example of one of the books I read was on kind of like, how come we all end up working such long hours over the week, and when we've got so much technology developing. And so just kind of a few examples on that, on how like we've almost fabricated job roles to make people look busy when it's a relatively simple task that one person could do on their own, and it doesn't need a team of 4 or 5 people. So I think, yeah, just kind of that, broaden your knowledge as much as possible, kind of learn from other people's experiences as well, because like Lauren said, you work with so many people and they all would have come from such different backgrounds that, you know, just get talking to them and kind of get to know people that you're working with, because then it'll give you experience. You'll have things that they don't know, and so then at the end of the day you end up making each other better.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good advice. Rob, you're nodding your head there. Do you have anything to add? Oh, I think your sound's just gone.
Is that better?
Yeah, we can hear
Sorry.
you now.
Yeah, so I definitely echo what Vikesh was saying there. So, I mean, there's 2 things for me. One is about if you can understand the areas that you are weak in and are honest about that, you can find people who can complement you and can build a team that has all of the right skills. So as a manager, it's not about having all of the right answers or all of the right skills. It's about finding people to join you that do have those answers and the skills. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. The other thing for me is there's something about being authentic in your leadership. So I've always tried to approach managing or leading people in a way that I would like to be managed or led myself. So that way I know that I'm authentic in the way I lead, because that's how I would want to be led. So it, you know, my own values then come out in the way I lead. And I say that bearing in mind that I've got 3 people that have previously worked under me. So hopefully I'm not sort of being false in that, but that's certainly always been my approach.
Yeah, great. And Chris, finally.
So one of my top tips would be is don't be afraid of failure. And the reason I say that is because someone once said to me, I think it's quite a famous quote, is the only difference between the student and the master is that the master's failed more times than the student's ever tried. And that's something that sticks with me. And as long as you're willing to learn from your mistakes and develop from them, failures and mistakes become less of failures and mistakes, and they become more lessons.
Yeah, definitely. And great quote there as well. Thanks very much for all that great advice. Just going to come to a couple of questions, and then we'll let you get back to enjoy your half term and the sunshine. Izzy has said, what will happen at the end of your degree apprenticeship? Do you get to choose the path of management within the NHS? Great question, Izzy. Who wants to take that one?
Anyone?
Lauren, you want to go for it?
Okay, so our contract, Rob, just tell me if I'm wrong. So we are offered a job at the end of our 3 years. So our 3 years will end in February next year. But we might be getting put in the position slightly earlier based on obviously when we finished all parts of our apprenticeship. So obviously the different types of management that you'd like to go into, we'll be discussing with our new manager, so they can then look at different routes that we could go down, different roles that could be there for us.
Great.
Yeah, what I would say, it would depend on which NHS trust you work for. Not all of the trusts guarantee a job role at the end. What most will do is they'll support apprentices to apply for a vacancy at the end of their apprenticeship. But the one thing I would say is recruiting and training apprentices costs NHS organisations quite a lot of money. So there's no point in us doing it as an NHS if we don't intend on trying to keep you in the NHS. The whole idea of apprenticeship schemes is about growing and developing talent to help us continue to improve across the whole of the service. So even if you're in a trust that doesn't guarantee a job at the end, chances are you will have a very good opportunity to stay in the NHS.
Okay, great. Yeah. And someone has asked, is there anything that scares you about your future role within the NHS? Your jobs are very demanding in many ways. Anything at all that springs to mind that perhaps you might be worried about?
I don't know. I don't know if and guys, feel free to disagree with me, but I don't know if it's so much about being scared of certain things as kind of more, and this might just be the way I look at it, but it's more kind of a challenge to look forward to, because it's one of those things where, you know, in any job role that you go into, you know, nothing's going to be perfect. You're never going to please everybody. So just kind of, I guess, and obviously the kind of recovery from COVID and everything, that's going to be quite a challenge. But yeah, so I guess kind of it's one of those things where it's more sort of an exciting prospect of kind of being able to get your teeth stuck into something and really kind of, like Rob was saying, if you're authentic in the way you go about your job, being able to mold that role to an extent around yourself and the way that you work, and hopefully that comes across to the people you're working with.
Yeah, no, a great answer. I like how your take on that. Did anyone have anything else to add on that?
No, I think Vikesh really hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, great. So guys, it would be great to hear from, any key takeaways, how you found the session. Charlie has said he's, oh yes, I think that was when I asked who's interested in management. He said he's tempted more by being a consultant in business, but this is interesting and made me think. That's great to hear, Charlie. Great that it's, made you think a little bit more. before I wrap up, thank you so much to our panelists who've joined us today and shared their journeys and given some fantastic advice. Does anyone have any final points that they would like to add before I wrap up the session? No, I think we've covered it all. Yeah, Vikesh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think
Yeah.
covered everything.
That's great. So yeah, thanks again, and thanks Rob, who's joined us on every session. It's good to see you as always. And thank you guys for taking the time out of your half term, out of your sunny afternoon. We really do appreciate it, and it's great to see familiar names as always. If you do have any extra questions, as always, you can get in touch with us. You can email us at student@pathwayctm.com and we can pick that up after the session. Also, if you aren't already following us on Instagram, we've got a prize up for grabs. You can win 3 months worth of Netflix, so to help you keep you entertained in lockdown. So give us a follow.